The following podcast contains adult language and themes, so don't say we didn't fucking warn you.
You're listening to SarahTalk. It's political.
You could run a fucking pet rock against Donald Trump, and I would vote for the pet rock.
Yeah.
That's where we're at right
Yeah.
Critical.
One of the things that drives me nuts as an atheist is that my polling location is at a church. And I don't necessarily have a problem. I'm not going to like burst into flames walking into a church.
After being on this show and having heard your viewpoints on some things, my advice to you is don't test this. I won't burst into flames.
And positively LGBT positive.
In many states, you can still be evicted from housing simply for being gay or transgender. Stand and fight with us.
Oh, and occasionally completely absurd.
I don't know if you've ever seen a lightning bug, but he flies around with a flame of light coming out of his behind. The lightning bug got a flame coming out of his butt.
It's a beautiful night tonight. All the sodomites are out.
And now, from Orlando, Florida, your host, Sarah Austin.
Hey everybody, welcome to SarahTalk.
Hello.
I am your host, Sarah Austin. In the studio is my lovely wife, Becca. Hey, we're here. Hey, Facebook fans. Who's in the Facebook chat tonight?
I see Dan. I see Victoria. That's all I see right now.
Awesome. But happy to have you all in the Facebook chat. We didn't start the feed as often or as early as we normally as early as we normally do.
I'm about to sneeze if you want to turn me.
Sure. One day I will have a nice little cough button at each station, and you can just mute yourself.
I'm good. I think.
Are you sure?
I don't know where that came from. I was like, it felt like it was going to happen, but then it didn't. So.
Yeah. Well, all right. Hey, just a quick reminder: November 6th, we are going to be doing a special midterm election live show.
Yes.
Mandy is planning on being here in studio, and we've invited the rotation of normal co-hosts that come through from time to time to come on by and have a big party, and we'll just watch the results come in, and we'll either celebrate or we'll cry.
Or we'll be too drunk to cry, and then we'll be hungover and we'll cry in the morning.
We'll cry in the morning. Right. Yeah, that's just as likely.
Yeah.
And we're gonna take live calls during that show too. So if you want to chime in and let us know how things are going in your neck of the woods, and it's gonna be a long night, by the way, because we exist in many time zones, and election results start coming in. The polls close at local times. So anyway, all right. Before we get into the dark waters of the news this week, let's bring on our special guests.
We have special guests.
Oh, we need another theme song for the special guests.
I just made one up. There you go.
They are the hosts of the How to Heretic, your user's guide to life on the outside, all the way from the wasteland of Utah. Uncle Mark and Uncle Dan, welcome to SarahTalk.
What's up, ladies?
What's up?
Hey.
Howdy do.
Hey, thanks for coming on the show. And I got to ask, because it seems like California is trying to smoke you guys out. What does California have against Utah anyway, and why haven't you fled yet?
Yeah, you know what's funny? I fled a week and a half ago to California, and it was less smoky there.
Oh,
so that was a weird little moment.
What this is? This is their revenge for Prop 8. So they're smoking out the beehive state.
There you go.
We'll fucking leave the hive.
I'm kidding, of course. I know you guys have been having trouble breathing, and of course,
Mark is dying over there. You should see him. He's a mess. He's a goddamn mess.
I look like I've been maced today.
Oh Jesus,
that's rough.
Which is not my normal look.
And it's a legitimate horrible problem that we probably shouldn't be laughing about. And hey, climate change is real, so there you go.
Yeah, something like that.
In a few years, there'll be no trees there left to burn, and it'll be perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
Right.
How's Tampa? Is it nice and damp today? Is it Tampa?
Tampa.
Yeah.
It poured this afternoon.
We had a horrible monsoon.
Rain. What's that like?
That must be interesting.
Well, every day between around 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. in Florida, rains every day.
Which is a real bitch when you live in a neighborhood with an HOA and you have to mow your grass twice a week because it grows so fast.
Yeah.
And they're like,
yeah, we live in the high deserts, in the mountain deserts. So rain is one of those things that, like, every now and then we all go outside and go, water is falling from the sky. What's happening?
Yeah, it's one of those things your grandpappy told you about.
Does that happen without the dance, or does it require a dance in order to make the rains fall?
That's
racist. Well,
it's just against Mormons.
Okay, so you guys are deep there in Mormon country, and you're ex-Mormon. But
that's true.
But they don't want you to use the word Mormon anymore. So can you really be ex-Mormon?
Well, that's the only kind of Mormon you can be anymore.
Right, that's what I was about to say, yeah.
They're all
Mormons are
ex-Mormons.
Yeah, everybody in the state is now an ex-Mormon, apparently.
That is great.
It's so hilarious that, it's the name of their book. It's the name of a very prominent character in the book, the eponymous book. And it's what they've called themselves from time immemorial. And it's what's most hilarious about it is that they not only think they can tell their members, which they certainly can, to change the nomenclature, they think that when they make this announcement to the broader world, everybody better fucking fall in line.
Right.
Are they trying to distance themselves from the Book of Mormon musical?
I don't know.
The really funny thing to me is that over the last 20 years or so, the LDS Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints,
right,
the Church of Holy Syllables, they have spent millions and millions of dollars. They've hired top PR firms in the country
on covering up sexual. Oh, that's not what you're talking about.
No. They've done that too.
The other millions.
But I'm talking about the millions that went to these PR firms that then went out to the world and bought huge important ad buys and ran all of these ad campaigns trying to normalize and make positive associations with the word Mormons.
Right.
You may have seen the, commercials in your area about, I like to go, I'm a Marine and I volunteer at the homeless shelter every week and I'm a Mormon.
And there's a guarantee that every person that appeared on those billboards was a person of color.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Right. Was a person somewhere in the brown shades.
They worked so hard to make Mormon okay.
They made a big 5 years ago, a big splashy documentary, slick documentary called Meet the Mormons.
Right.
Then they get a new prophet, the new 93-year-old guy that was the next just in the high capacity white guy magazine. And the first thing out of the gate is he's like, I don't like that word.
Yeah, he's been grumpy about it ever since before Joseph Smith was born, back when he was a boy. And it's finally his turn to have a soapbox issue, and he decides that's the one that he's going to go with.
Yeah.
I did some research on this, and it apparently it's not the first time that the church has tried to distance themselves from the word.
That's true.
1982, 2001, and 2011, according to station KSTU.
And look how well that went.
Yeah, it's worked so well. They're doing such a great job out there.
Yeah, and nobody really, I don't think anybody really comprehends why, but something that's really hilarious about it is among the acceptable terms was simply the church.
The church, yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Sure.
Yeah.
Right. We're the ones. It's us, remember? Forget everybody else.
So tell us a little bit about growing up in the church.
Oh, well, I mean, it's just a cavalcade of delights nonstop. The Mormon Church, I don't know if you know this, every week we had 3 hours on Sunday of torture.
Yeah, that was the bare minimum on Sunday. If you had an assignment or a calling or something, it could be much longer.
That's true, because all of the clergy is lay clergy, which means that everyone who's just every individual parish, which is called a ward, is run by just members in the ward. So
on a rotating basis.
Yeah, they just call somebody to be the bishop, and they call somebody to lead the cute little women's group that they got there,
and the children's group, and
all the things. Yeah. And they and so it's just this time suck. Yeah. For every poor sucker that's part of this church. And then they have midweek stuff as well.
Yeah. Almost every night of the week, I think except Saturday. Almost every night of the week there was a program that you were either expected to be or highly encouraged to be part of. So Monday night is the famous family home evening, which, if you really hate your family, was just more agony. Tuesday was usually like scouts. Wednesday was some kind of like
young people
thing, and then Friday was service. Or so it's a it's a highly detailed life. But I can tell you, growing up as a young in the closet LGBT kid, you know, the services were long, but they were nothing but affirming, kind, welcoming, loving. No, none of that's true.
No.
It in addition to being kind of grim and just tooth-crackingly boring, especially the Mormonism of my youth, which would have been the 70s and 80s, was shockingly homophobic. I think it's trying to return to those roots right now.
Yeah, they're doing a great job.
But it was shockingly homophobic. And I don't even think trans was a color that they could see.
No, I'm sure.
You know, with their black and white vision, so that they weren't necessarily transphobic, because that was, you know, they knew nothing about that.
They see you now. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Yep. They're not. They're really.
We have some
keenly
stories coming up.
focused
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
But if you want kindly, neighborly white people that are steeped in racism, xenophobia, homophobia, you could do worse.
But they will make you a casserole, and all you have to do is ask.
So they'll casserole your shit.
Oh, God. Hell
God. So all of that sounds wonderful. I can't imagine what would leave you to walk away from that. And
well, listen, if you like this, just give me your home address, and I can have a couple of young guys over there in about 15 minutes.
Yes.
Or light a candle, look into
I
a
can
mirror,
make them
and
do
say the
what-
words "Book of Mormon" 3 times,
Yes.
and one will appear.
yes.
And a casserole will appear.
I heard that if they come to my door and I don't want to listen to the message, I can just put them to work. And they'll like.
That's right.
They'll offer to do. They'll offer to do shit around your house.
This is our official position. You know, this actually sort of came up on my other show on Thank God I'm Atheist, where me and Frank realized that, and Frank's a returned missionary. Here's the thing: these missionaries, these young people, these 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds that are just out there, sort of learning how to do door-to-door salesmanship, the last thing they want to do is actually be going door to door teaching this bullshit. So you're doing them a favor, and I want all of your listeners to know this is 100% true. If you just say, "Hey, listen, I'm not particularly interested in your church, but I'm happy to give you a glass of water, maybe some food. Would you mind helping me weed my garden?" Yeah. I promise you, they will be thrilled. Because they're supposed to do a certain amount of service anyway, so it counts for them. So, like, yeah, just put them to work. Have them move your sofa or whatever.
Like, we legit need somebody to come in and clean out our garage.
Yeah, right.
I'm praying for them to knock on the door.
19-year-old guys.
Yeah, strapping young Mormon boys. Of course, you give them a call.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm trying to get to the how you left the church story. It was coffee and sex, right? Is that it was the siren song of coffee.
Dan, you're the shorter story, so why don't you go?
Oh my God. What's really funny is that when you tell someone who's Mormon that you left the Mormon Church, and someone that you've just met, half of the time what you get is just somebody. I mean, if you're gay, it's different. That's a different thing. But when they know you're straight and you left, they look at you with this sad look on their face and they say, "What happened?
Who hurt you?
Because
Who offended you?"
Right? Because their story for this is that somebody must have said something mean, or a bishop must have touched you in your naughty bits or whatever. But no, I mean, for me, I was literally just I was a teenager staring down the barrel of my time to go out into the world and proselytize the truth of the word, and I was starting to worry that it wasn't actually true. And I actually spent probably 6 months fasting and praying and just beating myself up because I couldn't get God to prove to me that he was there. And finally I went to my bishop and I was like, I don't know what to do. God isn't talking to me. I'm not getting any signals. It's ground control to Major Tom and nothing's coming back. And he said, let's get you into the temple, which is so going to the temple is like this big deal in Mormonism, and you don't do it until you're an adult theoretically, and you usually have a reason to do it, but You know, it's
you have to pass a pretty thorough questioning.
Yeah. You have to be worthy and all this stuff. It turns out that it's just like a whole bunch of Masonic rituals tied up with a very strange video, and then some.
And you're wearing
secret handshakes. And
you
stuff.
look like you're in a children's television show about a bakery.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, cool, let's do this. Let's do the interview, and I'll go to the temple and I'll feel the spirit, and then all will be well. So we sat down in the bishop's office, and he said, he sat me down. And he said, hey, all right, here we go. He opens up a binder full of, his questions that he's supposed to ask me, and he gets to the first question, and he says, do you believe in God the Eternal Father, and in His Son Jesus Christ, and in the Holy Ghost? And then he just stares at me for a minute, and I was like, this is a whole point. I don't know.
Yeah.
And he looked at me for a little while longer, and I was like, oh. I have to answer yes, huh?
I'll show myself out.
And he said, yeah, exactly. He said, yeah. And I was like, okay. Stood up, shook his hand, and I never went back.
Wow.
Yep,
That's bold.
That's great.
Yeah. So from my side, it was, first of all, if the bishop had touched me on the naughty bits, maybe I stayed, because it would have been a dazzling amount of affection in my young Mormon life, which was very starved of it. But I came from a pretty dysfunctional family, and there was a bad confluence, a really terrible confluence actually of Mormonism and mental illness, and they tend to fan each other's flames pretty badly. So growing up in a very crowded house, 4 boys and my crazy parents, and I happened to realize what I would later understand as my gift is that I'm gay, which did not seem like a gift at the time. But I definitely was never going to have a place at that table of Mormonism, even though my entire community, I don't think I knew anybody, to be honest, that wasn't Mormon, really. All my neighbors, my teachers, my doctor, my principal, everything, everybody. So even though I didn't know what it meant, I started to realize I was going to have to find, if I was going to survive it, if I was going to let myself live, I had to find a way out. So that started occurring to me at like 11 years old. So then I spent, I didn't have any options, and it was the, that would have been the late 70s, and there was no internet, there was nothing. So for a kid in the heart of behind the Zion curtain, there really was not a lot of options for me. So I just lived behind enemy lines until I could get out, and ran away, and didn't run away, but I left home and went to LA and started working, and left home without any life skills, because in the Mormon experience I came from, that wasn't important.
Yep.
I didn't know anything about taxes or how to open a bank account or any sort of certainly not dating or anything, but I was just kind of plopped into modernity from out of a covered wagon, and just had to wing it. And 30 years later, I'm almost there.
Wow.
Yeah.
You connecting with
good
that?
times.
Yeah. So Becca, if I don't think we'd have this conversation, but Becca's an ex-Jehovah's Witness, so
yeah,
I knew
there's
that.
a lot of that.
You told me that at one point.
That's basically the same.
It is. All the stories that I've heard. It's just a very similar experience. So
I mean, we got
crazy.
Christmas, so
yeah. Oh yeah, we got to celebrate the Passover, and that was it.
Yeah, to me, JWs just sounds like Mormonism, but way less fun.
It's at the risk of, I don't know, I think it's way cultier, maybe.
Who's way cultier?
The JWs are definitely way
Hang
cultier.
on. Hang on. Let's work up the column here. Because
did you ever baptize dead people?
Oh, whoa, that is kind of weird.
Did you have magic underwear?
Hey,
yeah,
no, but our Smurfs ran out of the Kingdom Hall screaming.
True. That's true. They were terrified of Smurfs. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
Do you join Planet?
And also, you guys had the whole you guys get the shunning thing really good. You guys are awesome at the shun.
We're the best shunners in the.
So are you shunned? Is that too personal a question?
I am not, because I was clever about how I left. And my mom is really the only one who still goes. But nobody else in my family is. So it's kind of weird, because I have children, so she wants to be part of the family, and know her grandchildren. But I
Sure.
never got disfellowshipped because instead of going to the elders and saying, oh, this is what I've been up to, I just kind of moved to a new city and stopped going altogether. And if you're not there, they can't discipline you. So
Now,
I
see,
found
in the Mormon Church, they
the
would
loophole.
be in communication. Like this is a part of the Mormon coercion that's very, very common. Is if you
it's a mafia. Don't
a
kid
mafia.
yourself.
If you leave your say your parents' area, it's your parents' church, and go to a church in another town, they will report back to your parents and your parents' ward about your attendance and your behavior, and then if you're not attending, all of a sudden, emails will start to come, calls will start to come, text messages.
On the flip side, if you leave your parents' neighborhood and you go off to whatever, a different land, and then you're not going to church, and you haven't checked in with the church in that area, suddenly someone will show up at your door from that church because your parents will have ratted you out about your current whereabouts, and they'll be like, "Hey, we were just concerned that you're not coming to church."
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very snitch-based religion. It's super snitchy.
Yeah. The witnesses are like that to a degree. When I was in my late teens, early 20s, I switched to a different congregation where I wasn't in my parents' hall so that I could go and skip meetings. And every now and then, like, somebody would call my mom and say, oh, Becca wasn't there. But I had a grandmother who wasn't a witness, so I would just go hang out with her. And she was very protective of me because she totally believed that it was a cult.
Right.
So she was like, yeah, you can come over whenever you need to. And she basically would just, keep my secret that I didn't want to go. But that was kind of like my first foot out the door was, okay, I got to get out from underneath my parents' thumb because my dad was an elder. So, and I was a full-time pioneer and so, so I had to kind of slip away. But, my mom did at one time give the local congregation here my address, I think, because at our old house they would come by all the time, and finally I just was like, yeah, you need to just stop coming here. Like, I'm not.
And did they leave you alone?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they did. They had come out with this very anti-LGBT cartoon for children, and the guy came to the door and he noticed that I had a little boy, and oh, you should let your son watch this cartoon. And I said, oh, the homophobic one? I don't think my wife would appreciate that very much. And they never came back. And then we moved.
Just turn white?
Then we moved, and they kind of just like left. And I was like, okay, yeah. Like, and that was the second time that he had come. The first time he came, he did say that, and I didn't say anything. And I was like, whatever. And then the second time I was like, yeah, no, we're not going through this again. You've already come. You've already made that suggestion. I kind of, just smiled and nodded, but now you're stepping on my toes again, and I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable. But I've known so many people who get like snitched on by their parents, and it's like, really? Come on, that's your kid. You shouldn't be doing that.
It's really scummy. And so I had a friend, a lesbian, was a married couple, and they were both former Mormons. They'd left the church 100 years ago, and wherever they moved, the same thing happened. All of a sudden they'd find them, right? It was like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. They just find them time after time after time, and they would start texting this one friend of mine, and she's like, what do I do? The Women's Relief Society is the women's group. They come to Relief Society meeting. Let's come to the potluck. And I don't know if you guys know what the CES letter is, which is kind of having a big impact in the Mormon sphere right now, which is basically an examination that a guy did of all the Mormon original texts and shows how they're all plagiarized in different ways. Oh. And so I told her just to get a link of the CES letter and text that back every time one of them texts you, and just say, I found this very interesting. I think you might like it. And it worked. They left her alone. After she sent like 50 of those texts, they just left her alone.
Oh, that's great.
A little asymmetrical warfare sometimes is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna blow past 30 minutes here, obviously. But,
sorry.
So I want to get into a little bit of the news before we come back and talk.
Is that right?
Are you with us?
I don't see what's going on.
If you guys are still there, we can't hear you. So you carry on.
Ruh-roh. Okay.
Well, that's lousy.
Yeah, that sucks.
Let us know when you can hear us.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so Dan just passed along in the chat breaking news.
Yeah, I saw that.
Stories.
Senator John McCain passed away.
Yeah.
Like right as we were on the air here.
Marco Rubio cut the line.
Can you chat with them on Skype and let them know that we can hear them, but
yeah,
they can't hear us? I hope it's not us. I don't think so.
Right. I hope not. Oh, it says we lost you. Oh no, they said we lost you. Okay.
I'm going to end the call.
Yeah, let's reconnect.
Fun
All right,
times.
you get to kill some time on the live.
Fun times at SarahTalk. I'm just gonna make up songs. Okay, Facebook. What do you got for me, Dan? You saw the breaking news. Give me more details. I mean,
Doom, doom, doom. All right,
there?
are we there?
We're there. We can hear you.
We can hear you.
I think Marco Rubio cut the line.
We heard you say that.
Funny.
We could hear you. It was so weird. We were like,
That's weird. We couldn't hear a thing.
That's crazy.
We didn't say anything gossipy about you guys, did we?
No.
No. We might have said some things about you, but
that's fine.
I'm kidding.
Well, we're both keeping our transphobic Tourette's in check right now, so I hope we didn't.
Good deal.
Yeah, really.
No, so I had said we need to. Obviously, we're gonna blow past 30 minutes here.
Oh, rude.
But
that's rude of us.
Sorry, we're pretty rambling.
No. This is great. Look, we could do this all night long.
She wrote me a note that says we need to move on. As we're like comparing notes on our culty growing up.
No,
right,
that was great.
News.
That was great. But we do need to.
Okay, so Senator McCain's vacancy will be filled by the GOP governor's appointment.
Well, they missed that. John McCain passed away while we were talking.
Passed away while we were talking.
Really? He died right now?
Yeah.
I blame Mark.
I blame Marco Rubio. I think I think he's just cutting all ties right now.
Yeah.
He cut us off.
You know what? Never underestimate the Viet Cong.
They play the long game.
Those play the long fucking game, man.
Okay, so we touched on one recent news story. The Mormons have issued their new style guidelines that discourage the word Mormon, the Mormon Church, Mormonism in favor of the phrase that rolls off the tongue, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or as you noted, the Church.
Yeah, the Church is acceptable, so let's go with that.
Yep, the Church.
Alert the Pope.
Last week, we talked about the sentencing of John Coltharp and Samuel Schaefer on charges of child bigamy and sodomy, having swapped their single-digit aged daughters with each other as wives. The Knights of the Crystal Blade were described in news reports as being based on fundamentalist Mormon teachings, though their group is believed to have around like half a dozen members. Not a big group. Are these?
It's basically a D&D crew that went rogue.
Can you imagine being in charge of the Utah Tourism Department?
Oh my God!
How you spin that, guys?
Yeah.
So that they're part of what is a really problematic issue in Mormonism, right? There are. Let's just pick one for this conversation, which is that every man who holds the quote-unquote priesthood, which in mainstream Mormonism is every boy over the age of 12 who promises he doesn't masturbate.
Fucking crazy.
So any worthy priesthood-holding man may receive direct revelation from God. Now that has shaken out in some bad ways over the years.
Telling morons that they have a direct line to Jesus is not always the best idea.
Right. What you're doing is telling people who may already have voices in their head whose voice that is.
Yep.
Right, and that they have a right to receive that and then to act on it. So that was the same with the guy who kidnapped Elizabeth Smart. It was the same with various polygamist clans over the years.
Warren Jeffs and all those guys.
Warren Jeffs and the singer swap whole thing. So this is just the latest, and it's it certainly is a bit more graphic in detail than the normal.
Yep.
But
that's true. These were not the standard passive aggressive Mormons. They got pretty aggressive.
Right.
So when stuff like that happens out there in like, what is the reaction in Mormon land? How are people reacting to those stories when they do break?
The church generally does not react at all. They like to pretend that this has nothing to do with them.
Right.
Certainly those of us who look at this from 30,000 feet see how directly it correlates to official, mainstream Mormonism. Most mainstream Mormons would never do this sort of thing, but they read the same books. These interpretations are legitimate, coming out of Mitt Romney and the Knights of the Crystal Blade are reading the same text.
Yeah.
So they just have a little bit different.
Now, I'm going to jump in here because I just want to point out none of them are actually reading it.
Right.
They all just have the same text on their on their bookshelf. None of them actually read the damn thing.
They put it into a hat and then they stick their head into the hat and then they pretend that they've read it.
Yeah. So I mean, the good news is after the crazy situation of Warren Jeffs kind of getting being acquitted in Utah, getting off on the charges here, and then thankfully Texas of all places managed to net him and put him in jail forever. It's good to see that these guys are, the state's throwing the book at it. It's really weird because there are polygamists operating in this state, right? There are polygamists operating in Arizona and Colorado and Utah and Idaho, but it's kind of like it's kind of a don't ask, don't tell in a weird way. The state is very loath to take it on head on because again, it brings up once again the history of Mormonism and polygamy.
Right.
So they'd almost rather just let girls get married off to old uncles and stuff like that than do some fucking thing about it. So it has to get pretty egregious before the state will engage.
Right. The thing that drives me crazy, like, I don't have a problem with polygamy. What happens between consenting adults is fucking fine. It's when you take your buddy's 7-year-old daughter and say, "You're my wife."
Yeah, and that's the problem because in this state, because polygamy is such a weird, there's such a weird relationship between the big downtown church and what they used to do, which was polygamy, and their shame about it and all this stuff. It's, like Mark said, they don't police the polygamy much at all, so they don't police the shitty the child polygamy. They don't police any of it.
Yeah.
If they just legalize it, then they would police the child stuff and the adults can do whatever they want.
But Sarah, what you're talking about is a very sexually liberated idea.
Yeah. We're not talking about the man with his harem. No.
Right. This is the opposite of sexual liberation. This is ownership, and it's
Yes.
always the power dynamic is always so fucking off. And in almost, in most of the cases, like Ron Green, not Ron Green. Who's that guy out in the desert that was marrying the 13-year-olds? I think it was Ron Green. No, Ron. What was his fucking name? Green. Tom Green, not the comedian. Tom Green. Sorry, Ron Green is a very highly respected shop owner here in Salt Lake, and that's not him. But
all opinions expressed on this,
right,
are Sarah's opinions.
Yeah, sure.
So, at her. So anyway, it's almost never a woman of 30 marrying a man of 30.
Right.
Right. Or within 5 years of each other. It's always about as youthful as possible, married to these old patriarchs because it's biblical
and they're gross.
Yeah, that's nasty.
Yeah, it's horrendous, and there's no agency on the part of a minor cannot consent to these things. Yeah. So there's no agency on their part. So yeah, if there was a religion-free version of polygamy where it was all consenting adults doing whatever the fuck they wanted, and if they wanted to get married, you'd have to be crazy to have a real problem with that. But again, religion poisons a good time, so that's how polygamy is expressed out here.
One God, one. What is it? The religion. Most religions, except for the ones in Utah, apparently, you have one spouse and one God, and that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Mormonism, strangely, is actually a polytheistic religion too. But we don't need to get into that. But our God is not the only God. He's just the God of us.
Yeah.
Right.
And later we get to go and be gods.
Men, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Obviously, like real people, not girls.
Yeah.
No, I can't be a god. Are you kidding me?
That's fucking stupid.
I mean, somebody's got to be there vacuuming heaven.
You're absolutely right. You win. You're more culty than I am. Okay, fine.
Oh, God. We should have a battle of the cults.
Vacuuming heaven. Oh my God. I'm not going to heaven. So.
Wait until Heavenly Mother gets a Roomba. It's going to free up so much time.
God. Okay. The next story comes from the Salt Lake Tribune, and we kind of touched on the church's love of the trans people. A transgender BYU student could be expelled and face discipline in the Mormon Church for having breast removal surgery. And I want to say, I incorrectly heard this story elsewhere. Reported as the trans student wanting breast augmentation is what I heard.
Oh,
but that's not what it is. It's a mastectomy.
Right.
And this person prefers the non-binary pronouns they them. So here's the backstory. Chris Irvin is a 31-year-old non-binary trans person. The family is in the religion formerly known as Mormon, and those things do not tend to go well together. So break this down. So what does the church teach about trans folks to start with?
Doesn't exist.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
Fake news.
I'm sure that they would still call it mental illness.
Yeah. All right.
I'm sure that they. So my assumption is, first of all, BYU. So I don't know how much you know about Brigham Young University. It's a ghastly place. It's a private university. It's church owned. It is a mystery to all of us why it still has an official accreditation. But there's something called the honor code, right? Where you have to live like a fucking monk. Yeah. Essentially. So they just allowed men to have facial hair like in the past year, I think.
No, what?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
A trimmed beard is now acceptable.
Oh my God.
Disney did the same thing.
Yeah, Disney did that too. Right.
Right.
We're sinking into chaos, people. It's anarchy.
It's not so different in a weird way. Anyway, and even if you can live in the dorms, but of course it has to be completely sexually segregated.
Yep.
Which is great for the gay folk.
You can live,
Right.
It's awesome for the gay folk. And then you can live off campus. But even if you live off campus, you have to live in certified housing that is basically like the dorms. So you can't have guests of the opposite sex over after a certain time, et cetera, et cetera. So it's basically just this continuation of this miserable childhood, right?
No drinking, no smoking, no swearing, no spitting, whatever.
Right, no sex of any kind. So no premarital sex of any kind.
And apparently no chopping off your boobs.
Yeah, apparently.
Right, you got to keep your tits. That's rule number one. You will leave this institution with the same number of tits you came in with.
Let me tell you something. The old men there have so few joys in this world. Tits on their students is one of the very few things that they can enjoy. You have to leave them on.
I wish you would look at the true victims here, ladies.
the old white men.
The old creepers.
Men. Right.
So I would assume, and I think I can assume safely, that they are viewing whatever is going on with this person as a mental illness crisis, and so they're doing them a favor.
Right.
They're doing Chris. Is it Chris? I think.
Yeah.
They're doing Chris a favor by preventing them from doing this. And of course, they're not. They're
They're
continuing.
Now, the other delightful angle to this story is how many Mormon women pump their breasts bigger.
Yes.
It's crazy how epidemic breast augmentation surgery is.
If you drive out of Salt Lake, either north or so, we live in this big north-south kind of valley here.
Okay.
And if you drive out of Salt Lake City Salt Lake is a very blue dot, right? It's a very progressive city, even though it's the capital of this garbage. But if you drive, out to the suburbs in the north and south that are much more conservative, much more densely Mormon populated.
15 minutes either direction.
There's billboards. There are so many billboards for plastic surgery, breast augmentation, varicose vein removal. Like it is, it's so crazy how
it's vanity combined with the fact that these women have all had 5 babies by the time they're 29.
Sure.
Right.
and suddenly their tits are like knocking their knees.
Right. So that's fine. There's no problem doctrinally or socially in Mormonism with that. So this is, Dan makes a great point. This is, just I have a different idea about my breast. Nope.
Wrong.
Yeah. Bigger only.
You can go up, but you can't go down.
Right. So Dan in the chat made a great point. What about women who have to have a breast removed due to breast cancer or
well,
something?
that's
okay.
They'd say nothing about that.
Yeah, of
that
course.
would be fine.
So
and bless her.
So yes, of course.
Did pray over her.
So the research I did said that they view gender as an eternal identity, of course, discouraging sex reassignment surgery. But top surgery is generally not considered sex reassignment surgery, but the Handbook for Local Lay Leaders says that a transsexual operation, in quotes, may be cause for formal discipline.
Right. Don't expect these guys to be technically or socially woke on any front, right?
No.
Yeah.
So but are they sleeping? Are they sleepy?
What's the opposite of woke?
Right.
Slept.
So there's some conversation that the Tribune reported on that I thought was great, and I want to read some of it. The conversation between Chris and their married partner, Nate. At one point, Chris says, "I told the bishop that the surgery doesn't change my sex, it just removes my boobs." And Nate replies, "Well, obviously he sees it differently, and so do I." So this is very much affecting their marriage. Chris says, "Isn't it my choice to make? Why can't I make that choice?" Which is certainly the right argument. And they say, "I'm not changing my sex. I'm not transitioning. I just want to feel more comfortable. I want to take the boobs off and feel better about myself."
Man, me too.
Why don't they compromise and leave one? Just everybody
take the Amazon route.
Yeah.
Then when you're pulling your bowstring and you're not going to twang that titty, it's all, why don't people think about the compromises?
Well, and not to question anything that's going on in Chris's life, because I really don't know anything about Chris other than this. I've seen this story.
Sure.
I would really encourage them to get out of if they have an option to get out of and away from BYU.
Yeah. How about transition from being Mormon to being non-Mormon?
Yeah.
What about that transition?
Yeah.
Or transition to the University of Utah, which is a very excellent, affirming place. Just 60 miles to the north,
So many great ways to trans.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Transition out of bullshit into Yahoo.
Into whatever you are.
So Chris writes a letter to the bishop.
Yeah.
At what point do my breasts determine my level of membership in the church?
Good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Good shots fired. And the bishop responds, if Chris moves forward with removing their breasts, Chris will move forward with punishment. And, quote, "I know that no surgery can bring you to true peace and comfort in this life," which is, I can tell you, 100% demonstrably false.
Yeah. Mormons like to say they know things very often that they have no fucking clue.
Yeah,
right.
They don't. That's the other thing about this little bit of authority that's granted to these men.
It's car salesman or dentist or whatever the fuck the bishop is.
They just know what's right for everybody at all times, and they're required to. Like, that's part of the job description of a bishop, is like suddenly you have to know best for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing about this whole story that bothers me the most, and that is, because the way our civil rights laws have been written and are being interpreted today, the university has a legal workaround to, religious exemption card that they can play to basically discriminate. That's where we're at.
Yeah. Well, again, it's a private institution. It's a private club.
Yep.
And so when you sign up, you sign all this shit that you will live by these honor codes. So, plenty of people have left over the honor codes. Plenty of people have been kicked out.
Yeah.
Because of the honor codes. And maybe Chris, I don't know, maybe Chris is, you might have read this, Sarah, maybe Chris is kind of being intentionally provocative and pushing against them, which I think is completely acceptable.
Yeah.
Agitprop,
Yeah.
Trying to drill away from the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I read that they were, considering, like, am I going to have to put this off until I graduate? Like, is this, Do I have to wait on this because I don't want this to affect school?
A lot of people make that calculation just simply about like coming out of the closet.
Oh yeah,
as LGBTQ or coming out as a non-believer.
Right.
You can go to BYU if you're not a Mormon. You just have to do all the Mormon things.
Yeah, but why?
People do.
The question is why.
People like football players. They recruit football players, and they have to, because they're desperate to get that veneer of normalcy to have like a winning football team.
There's also the thing of like once if you've got 3 years worth of credits built up, the thing about BYU is that they can revoke those credits,
right? And
then you can't transfer them to another university or anything. So they can be real dicks about it.
So that might be why Chris is deciding to stick it out because why lose however many years of hard work and putting up with that shit to start all over again.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice?
If she would have just kept her tits to herself, she would have been all right.
And religion is
just keep your head down and your mouth shut and your tits on and everything will go fine.
Oh my gosh.
And aren't we just so grateful for religion for bringing all the good things to the world?
Right.
Okay.
I love that. I think that's a saying we can take out of this. Just keep your tits on.
Keep your tits on. So before we go on to the next story, I do want to go back for a minute and just to say, Chris is a good example of the trans non-binary, right? I think a lot of people understand the gender binary and transgender within that framework. So male going to female, female transitioning to male. But here, Chris says they don't want to transition.
Right.
And that's fine. And that they may never want to transition and they may change their mind. And then all of that is fine. They are still transgender. They just experience gender identity differently from even us binary trans people. And they're still valid. But that's the thing I think people have a hard time understanding is that non-binary.
Here's what I'd say to people who understand the non-binary is that all of those things, the male to female, female to male, transitioning within the non-binary, LGBTQ, gay, whatever, it all makes the Mormons mad. So let's just together embrace all of that difference as a good.
Yeah, I mean, if you're pissing off religions, you're
doing it right.
Yeah, if you're making the brethren mad, you're doing all right. You're fine by me.
All right, cheers. Here's another story we haven't covered yet. You all are trying to pass a ballot initiative, Proposition 2, to legalize medical marijuana, and I think you'd have to be high to live out there. I really do. I don't know how you guys do it.
Well, drunk is another sort of high.
That's fair.
I don't tell any of your listeners this, but truly Salt Lake City's a fantastic place to live, and Utah's stunningly gorgeous.
Yeah.
So, but don't let that get out because we don't want anybody coming.
Right. Right. The other crazy religions would come move in. Then you'd have all of them. So there's a Mormon lawyer who filed a lawsuit arguing that legalizing weed would violate the First Amendment guarantee to freedom of speech and free exercise of religion.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
What?
Correct.
How?
Mormons, listen, guys. They're used to having a super. This is the only state that has such a super majority of one single particular religion. Massachusetts has a whole shit ton of Catholics. So does Louisiana, but they don't all speak with one voice. It's a very centralized identity, right? So they're so used to this super majority that they feel like, honestly, if you have a kid that has some terrible seizure problem and just needs some cannabis oil or whatever the fuck it is that helps with it, that's infringing on their rights. They really believe that their right is to force their religion into the public sphere through every window and crack, and that if you push back a little bit, they run to the fainting couch and claim that they're being discriminated against, and they're serious about it.
Yep.
I mean, they're one Jeff Sessions away from being right about that fact. So
yeah, true enough. Yeah, it's absolutely true. So they honestly think medical marijuana, and listen, it's just been revealed the Mormons own gigantic shares in the pharmaceutical industry.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's another reason they don't want this little herbal supplement to sneak in behind them.
Well, in this guy particularly, his angle is he's a landlord also, and so Prop 2 has language that would forbid landlords from discriminating against tenants solely because of their medical marijuana status. And he says this would force him, no, listen to the language. This would force him to associate with people and practices that run counter to his deeply held beliefs, violating his religious liberty, because religious liberty means license to discriminate, and that it basically amounts to compelled speech. I'm not a lawyer, but this is ridiculous.
Oh.
Well, let me cite U.S. Code. Where is it here? Go fuck yourself. Right. Do you know how often in my day I have to deal with people that do not share my beliefs in Utah?
Right.
You need to soundbite that, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. According to the well, and it looks like you guys have a shit ton of support out there. Actually, a recent poll I read had somewhere around like 2/3 of the population supporting Proposition 2 medical marijuana. How does that compare with, like, do you have any idea what the Mormon versus non-Mormon population?
Well, here's the thing. You got a lot of Mormons who have, a niece or a nephew or a son or an uncle who has, a condition. some condition that could be treated by this stuff. So eventually, just like with, as with all things, when someone you love is affected, suddenly your mind changes. Yeah. But I'm interested to see what's going to happen to those polls, because the LDS Church just sent out a mass email, which they always, here's the thing, they loved, they used to say we never ask our people to vote one way or another on things. They sent out a mass email specifically saying, don't vote against this bill, this initiative. So it'll be interesting to see, but so many of my Mormon friends are planning on voting, are very much in favor of this.
Yep.
So it looks like it's probably going to pass. We'll have to see.
There's a funny generational issue here too, which is that there used to be a thing called California Mormons, right? Which is when you grew up in Utah, you were inside basically you lived inside the walls of Temple Square, and it was very, very conservative. But there were Mormons that lived out among predators, right? And they lived in California and Florida and all over the place. And they were cool, because if they tried to treat people the way Utah Mormons did, they'd get kicked in the balls, right? So they didn't do that. So they kind of grew up to be a little different. Now, the way society's changed and information has changed and everything, there are many what I used to be called California Mormons living amongst us here in Utah, which are younger Mormons who have access to information, who are cool with gay people, who hated the Prop 8 thing, many of whom left the church. A lot of them left the church over all of the LGBT discriminations. But there's an outward-looking group of younger Mormons that are kind of the next wave. But the problem is all of the political policy decisions are being decided by the Brethren, which is
by fucking crypt keepers.
Yeah, the Brethren is basically the official kind of church term for the upper echelon, and the youngest one is probably in his mid-60s. Right. So and he's the prophet is 93, right? So people that are in a bigger bubble than your normal octogenarian are making decisions about things like medical marijuana, gay rights, et cetera, when the rest of a lot of the rest of Mormonism is looking outward and wanting to be more part of the world. So it's a schism we should all welcome, and Mormonism's not going away tomorrow, so let's have the best possible version of it. And if this passes, I think we're on our way to a better possible version.
Yeah, then that would be great. I think, we talk about this a lot in terms of when you're comparing Christianity to Islam, right? One of those religions evolved.
Right.
A lot, really,
Oh, so slowly, but yes.
Yes, yeah. Took a long damn time to get them there, and they've still got a ways to go. Yeah. But yeah, I have a lot of, this is my challenge, because there is a part of me that loves to play the Jim Bakker clips and laugh and have a good time at his expense. Right. But then there's another part of me that's like, no, we need to be reaching out to these believers and having genuine conversations and, using street epistemology to break down why they believe what they believe. And
you can do both. It's okay. You can make fun of the dipshits while you're at the same time having honest conversations.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's pointing out the extremes is helpful to the people that are in the safe middle.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. Hey,
we're very smart over here.
I'm a listener.
Smart for
I
you
know.
people.
This is why I listen to the show. We're at an hour. Are you guys good to keep going, or do you want to pop off here?
We can take a break, or we can.
Yeah, we can. Whatever you want to do.
Can we take a little break?
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Let me line up a break then. And
Line it up.
Yeah, my drink needs some refilling.
Yeah. Oh, I need more ice. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
How long of a break are you lining up?
I'm lining up 2 minutes.
Okay.
Here I go.
All right. Cool.
All right.
If it'll play my music. It's loads of technical difficulty day here at the SarahTalk studios. All right. Good grief. It's hot as hell in here, too.
It really is.
All right.
I'm like dressed for the occasion.
Okay, we'll be right back after this. You're listening to SarahTalk.
In today's health-conscious society, you have many beverage choices. But do you know what's in all of them? So much sugar, sodium, and things you can't even pronounce. Dihydrogen monoxide. What's that? Sometimes you wish you just had a simple, more elegant solution for your beverage needs. Introducing H2O, the first ever chemical-free thirst quencher. H2O is simple, simply composed of 3 portions of 2 elements, hydrogen and oxygen. H2O means chemical-free, unlike water, which is filled with all sorts of shit. When we tested H2O, we found traces of no other elements. So pure, the bottle may as well be fucking empty, with all the same nutritional content as a breath of cool mountain air. First widely featured on Goop.com, actress Gwyneth Paltrow revealed that she exclusively uses H2O for her vaginal steaming process. After all, why use water when you can steam it with H2O? So now we invite you to run out to your local garden hose and drink that shit. Remember, it's not water, it's H2O.
H2O bottled by Flint Bottling Company in Flint, Michigan. Product not actually endorsed by Goop or Gwyneth Paltrow. Please do not use H2O for vaginal steaming, or better yet, please do not steam your vagina. H2O is actually just water. Water is a set of molecular compounds. It's a chemical. Everything is a chemical.
Today we decided to walk to school. The light counted. 15, 14.
41, 31, 13.
We took a left on Carroll Street. Danny's smart, but he gets distracted. Realized he forgot his homework. I hope he doesn't have another bad day at school.
When you can see learning and attention issues from their side, you can be on their side. That's why there's Understood.org, a free resource for the parents of the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues. Go from misunderstanding to Understood.org. Brought to you by Understood and the Ad Council.
Are you ready for your first card? As I look at the set I placed down for you, I see an interesting things rising. Some of it has to deal with love and money and changes, and hopefully they're going to be for the better. Now your first card represents your situation, maybe some problems you've been having, maybe a little bit about yourself. Your first card is sorrow. This card is letting us know that there is some type of disruption in your life. Not that it's a big deal, but this card is giving off a strange vibe of anxiety. Actually, this card is warm in my hand. Oh, now caller, if you listen here, I'm seeing in the cards, yes, the 45 of mangoes. The 45 of mangoes card says you're going to go on to Patreon and subscribe, because there is nothing better than giving when receiving. What will you ask me? Find out now and I see for you. Call me now for a free tarot reading.
Hello, would you like to change religions? I have a free book written by Jesus.
Yellow.
I love any opportunity to use that clip that I can. I'm sorry, I'm still pouring my drink. Okay. I didn't give myself enough time. Welcome back to...
Did you pour the rum already?
Yeah, I poured the rum already. Go right ahead. All right.
All right. Yeah, you're going to need the other bottle.
Oh, man. It's all right. I finished the last bottle of rum, too.
Glad I went to the store today.
All right.
We're back.
We're back.
Sort of. Something wrong with you.
All right. So I have some. We'll move out of Mormon country here for a moment.
But it's so much
Let's
fun.
take a break from that.
Yeah, right. Oh, there's other crazy religious shit going on elsewhere that we need to.
All right, I guess.
The beauty of this is that Becca never sees the stories in advance.
Yeah, I have
She
no
has
idea what
no
we're going to
idea.
talk about. I much prefer it that way.
So there's a couple of kind of dark stories, and I'm sorry that we've been doing this a lot lately, and we have, unfortunately. There's just these have been happening.
You need trigger warning?
Sure, probably. This is another child sex abuse bullshit.
Oh, I thought you were going to go with Robin Leach has died. I thought that was the... Sorry if I'm breaking that news on the air.
No.
No. So this story is... Huh?
Is he still alive?
No, Robin Leach, he died the other day.
Did he?
Oh, I missed that. Yeah.
Yep, totally missed it. Okay.
Pour some out.
So this story is about 8 members of a paramilitary Christian sect in New Mexico. This is the name of the church. The Aggressive Christianity Missions Training Corps. Okay. They were arrested this week on charges of child sex abuse and other crimes. This was a long time coming. Apparently, Cibola County authorities had this group on the radar since they moved there in 1995. In 2015, a former member reported he was unable to find or contact his children at the site in Fence Lake, New Mexico. And in 2016, a woman came forward to report that she had been sexually abused as a child while living there. And then they detail some of who these people are. Deborah Green, 70, was arrested on charges of criminal sexual penetration of a minor and child abuse and neglect leading to a child's death. Her son, Peter Green, 54, was arrested on 100 counts of criminal sexual penetration of a girl at the compound. Now, they both pled not guilty, because of course they did, and are being held on a $500,000 bond. Joshua Green was also arrested and charged with failure to report a child's birth, which is a felony in New Mexico. He pled not guilty as well. Let's see. Others in the group, Stacy Miller, 47, pled not guilty to her charges of child abuse and neglect, which resulted in the death of her 11-year-old son. She also failed to report that death.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Amos and Ruth River and Timothy and Victoria River this was the story that broke, were arrested driving away from the compound. 11 children ages 4 to 17 were inside the vans. They were all charged with failure to report the birth of their children and pled not guilty. A lawyer for the Rivers claims that they were coming to meet with him at his office, and he swears that the police knew that.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think Dan's watching Law and Order on his Uh-oh.
So the bullshit about this whole thing is that these children at this compound are isolated, they're homeschooled, and the goal of this thing was to train people for overseas religious missions.
Oh.
Yeah, it sounds like social and life skills and how to travel was definitely part of their program.
Yeah.
Right? Rather than just neglect, starvation, and rape.
Yes, right. And they gave the option to the children to dress in military fatigues once they turned 13. Well, because it's the aggressive, what did I call it? The Aggressive Christianity Missions Training Corps.
It does sound aggressive. I got to give them props on accuracy in the name.
Isn't that the thing Jeff Sessions is trying to start up?
Yeah, I think that is.
Or it's the Space Force.
The task force. Oh, it was the Aggressive Christianity Task Force. That's what I heard.
Yeah. Pretty sure.
Yeah, and this thing has been in operation since '95, and it's just oh my God, it's like the first season of fucking True Detective. How do these things happen?
Yeah.
I guess it's the remoteness. How do these things happen out of the eyes of the authorities?
Well, yeah, the kids aren't going to a school. They're isolated. They're locked up in a compound.
They don't even know they're born.
They don't, right. There's no way to track them. They're not reported as being...
Well, I tell you what, this is the thing. I went to the Google Maps, and I typed in Fence Lake, New Mexico, and it is a camp of 42 people in the middle of fucking nowhere. I mean, it is literally maybe a flashing yellow light at a crossroads in the middle of the fucking desert.
Right.
Christ.
So they're in an isolated area. They're in the perfect fucking place to pull this stuff off.
Sure.
They're probably just down the street from the Muslim camp that was training kids to do the school shootings.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that we covered that last week.
Yeah.
I'm beginning to think that for all the good it does, there might be some downsides to religion.
Oh, you think? Yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean? Like,
weird.
I'm walking out on thin ice here.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can go with you on that.
Let's just continue and see if we can prove my hypothesis.
Well, let's go to the next story then and see if that corroborates. A father in Texas beat and stabbed his 16-month-old son to death Sunday. While the boy's mother was at work, officers responded to a stabbing call and found a child with severe injuries and a man with a gunshot wound to the leg. Witnesses said the man put his son on the ground and was beating and stabbing the child in the courtyard of the apartment complex.
What?
Captain Jesse Hunter said, quote, "The information we have is that the suspect came out of the apartment carrying the child, and he was yelling some very loud random things about religion, and Jesus is coming."
God.
You know, folks, this is one of those moments when we should just remind everyone, if you see something, say something.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You see a guy stabbing and shooting and stomping on a 16-month-old kid out in the courtyard. Where was this? In Texas?
Yep, Texas.
Probably not all that rare, but still,
well,
you gotta call the authorities.
You know, we finally found the story where there's a good guy with a gun. You know, we talk about that a lot. The good guy with the gun story. So officers found knives covered in blood all over the property, a trail of blood leading from the apartment to the grassy area outside. A man watching from his second-story balcony shot this guy in the leg to get him to stop.
Wow.
So there's your good guy with a gun. We found him.
Well, I mean, that one instance was, did the kid die? Is that?
Yeah, he did.
So, like, that one instance where he wasn't actually able to save the innocent life, but he sure did.
He tried.
Wound the bad guy.
Well,
yeah.
Definitely worth all of those other instances where nobody was able to do anything.
Right.
Super good argument for the Second Amendment.
Well, I think we got to dig a little deeper into this because it is Texas, so the odds are actually much more likely that it was a confluence of a religiously motivated murder and a mass shooting that just happened to occur in the same spot
thing.
at the same time.
You know, the 16-month-old probably had a gun too.
Probably
packing.
Yeah.
Sure. He should have.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
he probably could have protected
wasn't
himself
properly
if he did.
Wow.
The mother later said that the father had recently been reading the Bible a lot and that they had been attending church services. And this echoes the story that we talked about, months ago, where, do you remember the father had built an altar?
Yeah.
He was watching TV, watching religious programming on TV and reading the Bible.
Garbage.
And so he built an altar like they told him to on his religious programming. And went and killed his kid, and then the mom came home and was like, "Where's the baby?"
Yeah. Wasn't the kid in the closet or something?
Yeah, in
like
the trash can in the
put him
closet.
in it,
Yeah.
Like,
Oh my God.
I mean, let's not forget that their foundational book specifically says that it tells the story of this great man who was told to go and sacrifice his son.
The father of the religion.
Yeah.
Like the highest test of your faith is already that. So can we be surprised when people actually take God up on that one?
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, I think like obviously there are monsters in any society who are going to do monstrous garbage, but
yeah, one of the great men of the Bible.
Right. But I can't help but think like for people who may be predisposed to that in one way or another, then you introduce to them this religious garbage, this magical thinking, and that just, you know, it makes them actually act on those dark thoughts.
Yeah, like how much of it could be avoided?
There's crazy, like you say, there's monsters, but then as we're seeing now with politics in this country, when something legitimate, quote, air quotes, scare quotes here, when something legitimate comes along, it gives them permission.
Yeah, sure.
Right? The Bible is venerated, of course, wrongly, but certainly, you know, culturally and historically, it is this monumental thing, and it comes along and gives the voices in your head permission, and that's some of the fucking danger of it.
Yeah. Okay, the next story. Speaking of danger in the church. Oh, this is a good one. This comes from the Friendly Atheist. Deep in the hills of Middlesboro, Kentucky, between the trailer parks and the barrels of moonshine, lies the snake-slinging full gospel Tabernacle in Jesus' Name Church. You may be familiar with this church from a 2014 story where Pastor Jamie Coots died from a snake bite.
Yep.
Later that year, his son Cody Coots was bitten on the finger while cleaning snake cages and said he would just rely on prayer for healing.
Of course.
Now, skeptics, don't let the fact that he survived that lead you to the errant conclusion that prayer works. We need a little more. We need a little more investigation, a little more detail. Let's research some more, right? So Cody has a crisis of faith after that initial bite, but he eventually goes back to being a pastor after his pappy. Anybody want to guess what happens next?
Is he dead?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet. So Barcroft TV just posted a documentary about Coots, and they actually caught him getting bitten by a snake during a service.
Again.
Oh, again. So I hope you guys are able to hear this. I'm gonna play the intro to this thing because it's just fucking crazy. After I restart it.
These snakes, it's a part of the Bible, and I'm going to put that before anybody. I've been bit 6 times. I don't think it's crazy. It's just a sign from God.
Snake handling, it is not for me. I don't understand it.
That's his wife.
The purpose of our church is to spread the name of Jesus Christ and get people saved.
But if you've not been raised up in it and you look at it, you're going to be like, man, them people's crazy.
Yes, that's what we think. Watch that. He gets bit. There's blood all over his shirt. He's coughing. They're carrying him out.
Oh.
Okay, that's the intro to the show.
Oh.
Oh my God.
So he gets bit on the ear. There's blood gushing out of his ear as people carry him out. And luckily for him, they didn't rely on faith to heal him. They took him to the fucking hospital.
Where they amputated his head.
They amputated his head.
Oh, if only. No, he survived, and now apparently he's questioning his faith all over again.
Yeah, because he's a goddamn cheater.
Right.
Yeah, there's, look, I think Dan will second this motion. That growing up Mormon, I would have done anything to see snake dancing in church. It was so fucking boring.
God.
So there's something so quintessentially American about these people to me. That these, I think it's is it the Book of Luke? Where, the first version of this stuff, they called themselves the Church of God with signs following because it's out of the scripture.
Right.
You'll pick up serpents.
Yeah, he talks about that in the
yeah
thing.
And it's quintessentially American, but it's also batshit crazy. So I guess I don't know what to do with it. I think they should leave the snakes alone.
I feel like every other Christian in the country should be ashamed of themselves for not having that much faith.
Right.
I feel like, you know what? Get some balls on you. If you're going to believe in the word, then that's part of it.
If you're
Take
gonna
up a
do
serpent.
it, go all the way. Yep. I agree.
if you insist the power of prayer works, prove it.
Right. Oh, as we've said many times, if prayer works, why the fuck are we not all down at the children's hospital healing those poor children who are dying from brain cancer?
Right. Or why don't I have a larger bulge in the front of my jeans?
Now, the full video of this snake handling thing is like 13 minutes long, and I think that's just the first part of the documentary thing.
That's insane.
But so what we're gonna do is we're gonna watch this whole video, Becca and I, and we're gonna do commentary.
Okay.
As a Patreon bonus for our patrons.
Sounds like fun.
Good luck to you.
Yeah. If you could, now you guys are in the South, so that's kind of your world, so you can comment on it. But if you can get through the whole thing without being culturally insensitive to the South, I will be impressed.
I can never be culturally insensitive.
I mean, I grew up in Florida, and like, I don't know, but I don't consider myself from the South. I think Florida's a different species.
I agree. But we follow the Tom and Cecil motto of garbage states.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Say from two guys who live in Illinois, which is hilarious.
Right? Well, okay, funny story. I grew up in Illinois.
Oh, okay.
But
so you know it.
But I didn't grow up in Chicago. These are city boys, right? I grew up in the fucking cornfields in a town of 1,400 people in the middle of nowhere, no stoplights, 9 churches.
That sounds like the right ratio.
Sounds like paradise for a young trans kid.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, definitely. No, it was great. Let's rip through the last couple of stories here while we got you on. We're doing okay on time here. Florida news. These are just a quick couple of recaps from some stories we've talked recently. Amendment 8
Please
here.
no more baby stabbing.
No, that's it. We're coming up now.
Okay.
She likes to drag you right down into the dirt and then raise your spirits.
Yeah. I try
to raise our spirits with Florida stories.
Right, exactly. So we talked about this with a couple of candidates that we interviewed in the past few weeks. Amendment 8 would create a pathway for the state to oversee charter schools, which bypasses local school boards. After a challenge in court brought by the League of Women Voters of Florida, a Leon County judge ordered Monday that Amendment 8 be removed from the ballot.
I saw that.
Oh.
And that's great. Circuit.
Oh wait, sorry, I was confused. The League of Women Voters were challenging it.
Yes, they said. So here's what I think.
Wait.
It's basically very bad.
Good education.
So
That's crazy.
Here's what. Yeah, right. Here's what Amendment 8 would have done. It was actually like 3 separate proposals bundled together to increase its chance of getting passed. And one of them was school board term limits. The other is require the legislature to promote civic literacy in public education, which, come on. And then the one that we had the big issue with was the state control of charter schools. So I think this is great news. Take that off the ballot. And part of the thing that the judge said was like, look, you specifically wrote this and bundled these things together to try to ramrod this thing through.
And none of them have to do with, like, they're 3 separate issues. They should be 3 separate bills. There should have been.
Well, there's 11 amendment items on the ballot this year, so it's already.
It's just ridiculous how they get away with doing that.
Well, that's what they always do with amendments, right? Or try to, is there's a couple of good things and then you try to squeeze some poison into it. Right, to make it. You put the sugar around the medicine and see if it'll pass.
Yeah, that's awful. Also last week, we talked about Maddie, who is a 12-year-old trans girl in Oklahoma who was threatened in a parent group on Facebook. Do you remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now the family is trying to move away, but where the story really gets infuriating is, so they moved from Oklahoma. They moved to Oklahoma from Texas. After Maddie.
It's a lateral move. That's not
right.
They didn't do it. They did not go far enough.
Do you want to know why they left Texas? Because Maddie was being bullied.
Yeah, it just seems to me that like if your goal is to keep your trans kid from getting bullied, you got to go further than Oklahoma.
You've got to be able to see the ocean.
Find a blue. Yes. Yeah. Find a blue coast. So now they're trying to move again. So in Texas
to Arkansas.
No, they should like go to Oregon or
fuck it, Saudi Arabia. Let's go.
Oh shit. Now in Texas, in the first place, she was severely bullied, taunted to commit suicide, and assaulted in the bathroom, which is fucking garbage. And how can you let you do that to another person? So now a stranger has created a GoFundMe on their behalf, hoping to raise $15,000 to help them move back to Texas.
No.
Back to Texas.
Why?
No, that's the wrong direction.
Oh my god.
They say closer to family in Houston this time, and where they think conditions will be safer and provide resources for Maddie.
No,
don't go back to Texas.
Austin, they got to go to Austin if they're going back to Texas. That's that's as good as they're going to get.
Then again, Houston was the one that had the lesbian mayor for a while, so maybe it's okay.
Wasn't Houston?
And they handled that super well.
Right. Wasn't Houston the one that was trying to pass the rights? Hero?
What was that? I don't know.
Yeah, I remember.
The bathroom thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember following that.
Was it Houston? I think it was Houston.
I think it
It was
was.
a long time ago, though.
Well, the point is stay out of Texas.
Right,
The point is just fucking
Garbage
leave.
state.
You just go north and either east or west. You'll be fine.
Right. And Oklahoma is not an option.
No.
I mean, at this point, just go to Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, that shit.
Right. So here's.
Well, and, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I may be, skipping ahead of you here, but what was, of course, even more infuriating was when I read that the parent that they found who was behind this whole "we're going to hunt you down and kill you." Is that where you're going?
No, go ahead.
They have discovered is a pilot for Frontier Airlines.
Oh.
Oh.
I hope Twitter makes sure that is not the case for much longer.
Good Lord.
Yeah, seriously.
No, I hadn't seen that.
Gosh,
Yeah.
we fly Frontier too. A lot.
Well, a lot. We fly once every 3 years.
No,
maybe.
we do not.
No, the good news, I was going to turn it around here. The good news is, of the $15,000 goal set on the GoFundMe, they've raised $51,600.
Nice. So they can go
Nice.
somewhere
You know
other
what?
than Texas.
Right.
That's California money right there.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, not quite Bay Area, but
No, of course not.
Close enough that they're not in Texas.
Right. Anything better than Texas.
Oh,
That'll
poor
get him to
kid.
Mexicali.
Mexicali, Rancho Cucamonga.
They just have to
Hope
make
you'll
sure
hit
not
the
to go near
Imperial Valley,
border
kid.
control because,
Okay. So then the last major story here, you thought Florida's Kimberly Daniels, the Democratic lawmaker who also runs a side hustle ministry, claims to speak to demons, and introduced the garbage bill to put In God We Trust on schools, which was passed. You thought she was bad?
Oh, God.
Okay. This comes from the Raw story. The Miami Herald has endorsed a Republican candidate running for Congress in Florida's 27th district that says she was abducted by aliens when she was 7 years old.
I thought that's everybody in Florida.
Okay, wait. Miami Herald. So that's my old neck of the woods.
That's your,
Where is she? What?
I don't.
What's her name? Oh, come on. You don't know more information than that.
You know what? I don't know how broad an audience we're reaching right now, but if any extraterrestrial people are listening, when you abduct people, don't bring them back.
Yeah, just keep them.
They're free. It's you catch them, you keep them.
You broke
right?
it, you bought it.
That's right. Just take them back to Rigel 7 with you, and they can run for Senate there.
I'll get to her name here, so you can tell me if you know her.
I probably don't know her.
Know of her. According to the Herald, the editorial board, this is some bullshit. The editorial board was put in an awkward position by the front runners in the GOP primary, who all refused to sit down with the paper. Another candidate said he wasn't interested in an endorsement. It left few options for a paper, but this is ridiculous.
How do you not want an endorsement?
It's a major
it's the Miami
newspaper.
You don't have to endorse somebody.
Yes,
You
that's
can just
where I was
not
going.
endorse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why do you have to put somebody's name down? I don't know. Vote of no confidence, right? It left few options for the paper to consider for their political endorsements. However, they said they were impressed by business consultant Bettina Rodriguez Aguilera. No relation. This is what the endorsement says. Quote, last year, she told the Miami Herald and several Spanish-language media outlets that she believes in extraterrestrials. She says when she was 7, she was taken aboard a spaceship, and throughout her life, she has communicated telepathically with the beings, which remind her of the concrete Christ in Brazil. Are you fucking kidding me?
I mean, is it really that different from any of these religious nuts who believe they talk to Jesus?
Well, if that's what they look like, you know why they're abducting people is because they can't reach their own pockets, right? They just
could you scratch my back?
Yeah.
Oh, it's right there.
I got a hair in my eye. Can you just? I got the stiff shoulder syndrome.
While you're here, you might as well. I'm going to probe you
I
just
can't
while
see
you're
the
here.
whole thing.
Oh. Victoria in the chat says, I'd vote for an abductee. Is that really worse than someone who claims to talk to God? At least they believe in aliens. Yeah, there you go.
They believe in technology, I guess.
Right.
Something.
Like, I don't know that I don't believe in aliens. It's never been proven, so I think it's more likely. I think it's much more likely than a God out there. But
yeah.
In what way is anyone's conception of God not an alien?
Right.
Right. right? Okay. In the Democratic primary, the Herald endorsed Democrat David Richardson, who spent 10 years at the Herald. Buy your way on.
Jesus Christ.
And as program director for the Knight Foundation. Now, I'm not sure why. Again, I'm not sure. Why couldn't you just run without endorsing anyone? Can you do that?
Well,
it's a very common thing for newspapers, though.
Right.
So, but I don't know.
Is it like, when I worked in radio, in real terrestrial AM, FM radio.
It wasn't extraterrestrial.
It wasn't extraterrestrial. It was just normal terrestrial. We had the FCC and the equal time bullshit, right? So if we were going to have somebody on, and we were a commercial station, we weren't public radio. If we're going to interview somebody running for, whatever, we had to have the other candidates on too and give them the same amount of time. If you get an hour, they all get an hour.
That might be what the Miami Herald was trying to do, is just make sure that they couldn't be accused of
favoring one party or
leaving the column blank. But it seems like
right.
And I think they did the right thing in a weird way by doing this, because it shows you the quality of the other party, right?
Yes.
It should make the choice fairly simple, but it's Florida, it probably won't.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. The beauty of this whole story is the Raw Stories writing. So at the conclusion of their article, they said, quote, Senator Bill Nelson, Democrat, Florida, served as a payload specialist on the Space Shuttle Columbia. He has not revealed whether or not he saw aliens while in space.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I love the Raw story. So
that's
good.
Fantastic.
Oh my gosh. Dan in the chat wants us to let Mark and Dan know that they have a new subscriber to their podcast.
Good. You'll love Dan.
Oh, thank you.
You'll love Dan.
We love Dan.
He's one
amazing.
of our favorites.
It's just going to be disappointment from here on out, Dan. I'm really sorry about this. Yeah.
All right. The best stories start with
a Florida man. We really need to make a jingle or something.
I know we do. I've contacted, so the company that did some of the work for our intro to the show, I touched base with them and was like, look, I got a real vague idea. It's kind of this, it's kind of this song. It's maybe a little bit like this song, and it's got this kind of feel, but I don't really have a lot to go off of.
Is that what you said to them, or did you give them actual descriptives?
No, I gave them actual. No. Yeah, I'm like, it's kind of like the Cat Dog theme song, and yeah, okay. A husband and wife were having dinner in the Kobe Japanese Steakhouse in Clearwater, Florida, when, according to court records, they received something not on the menu. Florida man James Dylan Jordan, 24, drunkenly approached the couple, started taking off his clothes, and dancing in front of the woman.
Ooh, baby.
When she told him to stop, he called her fat and threatened to fight her husband. Oh, the things you do when you're drunk.
Oh my goodness.
What does one tip for that? I don't know. Yeah. I'm unclear on the standards on those things.
Is that the Florida version of like the hot cops? You know, the sexy guy you get to come over and pretend he's a cop and dance at your date's table.
I'm pretty sure that's the Florida version of a mariachi band.
Right.
Yes.
The tableside
that sounds
mariachi.
Right. Yeah, and you go to the next table and do a little dance. Yeah. He was arrested by Pinellas County Sheriff's deputies on charge of disorderly conduct and was released on a $150 bond. That's it? Did he not take it all off? Because
apparently not.
Wouldn't that be?
You need to call your girl over there in Pinellas County and say, "Hey, what's up with your charges here?"
Oh, that's right. I do have a friend over there now.
Or maybe he took it all off and it was impressive enough that everybody was just like, you know what, we're gonna let you go on easy on this one.
Yeah, dinner and a show.
Maybe he was a first-time offender.
Maybe you're stretching.
No.
Yeah, really stretching. Okay. The next story then, a driver in Pompano Beach driving along Route 60.
Oh, that is my neighborhood.
I know. Drove up behind a public bus.
Oh my.
On the back of the bus was unnamed Florida man standing on the bumper holding onto the vents.
Oh.
He found a loophole.
Yeah. When he noticed he was being filmed, he let go with one hand and did a little dance on the bumper.
Oh my god.
Clothes on, this guy.
Okay. Wow.
No word on what happened to the man. I assume he got to the destination, but The cost of Broward County's transit one-way cash fare is $2, and the all-day pass is $5.
Yeah, it's not expensive by any means.
He saved a few bucks.
That's $2 that guy now has to spend somewhere else, my friends.
Right.
Yes.
That's just thrift.
That's $2 he's got to get into a petting zoo somewhere. And what I like about this Florida man thing, and I think if you guys will workshop this with me, because I'm working the film business.
Yeah.
I like this as the next Marvel franchise because I like to imagine that it's all the same guy, right? And his superpower is he's just a crazy, naked, drunk fuck up trying to trade an alligator for beer, right?
Oh my God, that's
And he's
amazing.
One of the Marvel guys.
Yes.
What do you think?
Yeah,
That's
I love
great.
it. That's awesome.
Yes.
Marvel, if you're listening,
Need to get some screenwriters on this.
Oh
with
my
his sidekick meth mouth.
God,
it's amazing. Surprisingly enough, though, I've been around Florida long enough. This jumping on the back of buses and trucks and hitchhiking is very common. I used to see all the time on my way to work skateboards grabbing on or
Back to the Future style.
Yeah,
the back of the Jeep.
or jumping on the it's like I don't know. What do they call that?
Full disclosure. We used to do that on snowy days here in Utah.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that.
Kids would latch onto
With your
bumpers
sleds.
and buses and trucks and stuff and
Yeah.
slide down the street until they took a real bad tumble.
Like there was
until you hit a dry patch.
There was one not too long ago, the guy on the back of a semi-truck on I-95, wasn't it?
Wow, when you're doing it on the interstate, that's hardcore.
But that's the thing. Like, it's all the time. When living down south, you'd see it all the time. I don't know.
Well, the thing about the bus that I thought was crazy is like...
It's an actual mode of...
I don't know if you've stood behind a bus lately, but the exhaust and the heat... And in Florida, it's already 140 fucking degrees anyway. And
yeah,
so
but have you been on a bus lately?
Well, that's true.
Because inside the bus isn't
much
better.
Right?
Russell wants
That's
to know
true.
if you have a link to the video. He's wondering if he might recognize the guy because he lives right there.
Yes, Russell.
Don't you reveal his secret identity. Don't you reveal it.
Russell, was it you? No,
Yeah,
I
right.
watched the video. It wasn't Russell. No, I'll send you the... Hell yeah.
That's hilarious.
Okay, I'm going to try to play the music here, and hopefully it doesn't blow up our Skype connection.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Your choices tonight. That's not what I ordered. Or, come on and take a free ride.
I'm gonna let our guests go ahead, and you guys can pick which one you like better.
Vote for the one you like the best or the silliest.
You guys are breaking up on us.
Jesus Christ!
Someone squirrely on the audio.
Turn the
when you
music
did
off.
that.
Yeah, I'll turn the music off. We'll edit that in post. So your challenge is to pick the story that you like best, or that's funniest, or goofy, or crazy.
Of all of those Floridian ones.
Yeah, and we'll even include crazy. She wasn't formally in the thing, but alien lady, I guess, counts as Florida man.
I like tableside nude dancing. I think that the tableside Chippendales should go nationwide.
Yeah, I do too. I think you should. If you don't know the religion of every man in the restaurant by the time you leave, then I think we fail as a society. So I'm gonna go with this.
All right.
The dinner theater.
Yeah. I agree with Mark and Dan only because I've seen so many hitchhikers.
Yeah.
It
a little too common.
Yeah. Russell and Dan in the chat both are going with the free ride.
Oh, all right. Well, there
and
you
then
go. It's neck and
Victoria
neck.
votes for the alien lady.
Okay, cool. I kind of like that too. That's batshit crazy. Okay, so
everybody wins.
Yes.
Dan wants to know if he needs to go back to episode 1 of the How to Heretic.
You can.
So that's
They
the
don't
next
go in any
topic.
order.
Yeah.
Our show, Dan, our show is not really current events, so it's just more kind of critiques of religion and various kind of things. So you could go in any order at all you want.
Cool.
It's yeah.
So that's
serialized.
That's the next question. You know, what sort of things do you talk about? Where did the idea come from to do this type of podcast specifically?
Well, we wanted to do something that was something for the non-believing kids out there, but something that wasn't being done. You know, I do a current events show that I mentioned earlier, Thank God I'm atheist. And Mark has been on that show a number of times, and I just thought, you know what, we need to do something. You know, there are all these people who are dipping their toe into non-belief, who don't, you know, once you leave, you may not know how to live your life now.
Yeah.
You know, without the structure and the bullshit that has been heaped on you since your birth by the religions. So we decided to try and sort of make a safe landing place for people, and also for people who have left and have been out for a long time or who have never even been in. It's just fun to explore the world, the wacky world of unfounded belief, and just see what's out there.
And yeah, to deconstruct what were sacred cows and go, oh my God, that's really a stupid thing. And, you know, for a lot of people who are just skepticism curious, or like Dan said, just poking their heads out from behind the curtain, you might tune in to our friend Noah Illusions and hear one of his diatribes and run back behind the curtain, because there is a lot of really angry content out there, which I think is fantastic. But that's not for everybody. I think we wanted a more welcoming, more fun space, and part of that evangelism is to show that life outside of religion is fun, and it is lovely, and you can have a great time and not be so fearful. So hopefully we're succeeding more than we're failing on that front.
I think so.
We'll make a good show any day now.
No, I think it's very important that, you know, building the landing pad for when people leave, and that when we often talk about, you know, one thing that religion does real damn well is community building. And when you see these people once a week, 3 times a week, 5 times a week, and these are your people, like these are the people that you interact when you get sick. They're the ones that bring you soup and they call to check on you, and there's so much in your life. And when you're facing the notion of walking away from that, and the idea that, well, shit, I'm going to have nothing when I walk away from this. I think that's something that we all in the atheist community have got to get our hands around, and create that network, that you know, the catch net for them to fall into.
Totally agree, because I think a lot of, you know, if your family was, we're nice Methodists, or, you know, we're nominally religious in some way, it's not that big a deal. But like, you know, if you come out of the J-dubs like you did, or you come out of Mormonism like we did, it can be like going out the airlock, right? There's just a vacuum of unknown and scary shit out there, because your whole life has been detailed with a lot of busy work, and B, it has been you've been, you know, awash in misinformation and lies. So you're terrified of what lies beyond, and what it is a technicolor world that's amazing.
And there's a lot of you know, there's this sense out there of you can't just leave. You know, leaving is not just okay, you know, I've written you a letter and I'm no longer in your church. There's all of these psychological tendrils that religion sort of has implanted into your brain in various parts of your psyche that you have to sort of tease out one at a time. You got to sort of really get to, you know, I had homophobic sort of tendencies because I was religious, and I had to figure out how to get rid of those, and I had to figure out how to sort of get rid of the shame that religion had implanted in me about sexuality in general, about my sex, about sex as a concept. And, you know, all of these things take time, and nobody's there to tell you how to do it.
Right.
And Lord knows we're not there to tell you how to do it, but we get some really smart guests on who know what they're talking about. And slowly we're going through and trying to make life better.
That's awesome. And you do some fun segments where you know, look at the batshittery in the Bible, or you know, like these are the things that you don't get taught in Sunday school.
That's right.
And look how crazy it is.
Well, what's amazing is the things that you do get taught in Sunday school are just as stupid.
Yes.
They just skip all the stupid parts.
Yep.
So, like, it's just every now and then we just read the actual, like, story, and I'll just sort of shake our heads and go, wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like Jacob and Esau. We read the story of Jacob and Esau, and we're like, what the fuck does this even mean?
Yeah.
Right. It
means nothing.
There's no good moral to be had. And B, it's just the story of horrible people doing horrible things to each other. and also God somewhere in there somehow.
My biggest takeaway is that stripy sticks make spotted goats.
Yes.
So
very important.
That's not true.
Wait, I'm sorry. Not true? Fake news.
I'm proving it now. I have a control group.
That's right.
At home, I have some goats.
Sitting in a room of
his
goats.
goats are getting out.
They're awfully quiet.
Are you doing a double blind study, or are you?
Yeah.
Oh,
if they're blind, they can't see the sticks.
Come on, guys, science.
Oh man,
that's so good.
That was great. So I'm thinking of some other segments that I love, like garden or / graveyard of the gods, where you take a look at some other gods that are out there that people may not be very familiar with, and I think by inspecting how crazy some of the other shit out there that you may not have heard about is, it reflects how crazy your own shit is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's so funny because all of Christianity is so normal now, and everybody just totally accepts and respects that. But boy, you talk about Thor, you talk about Bubba Hotep or whatever the the god is, some ancient god, and everybody, even the Christians, are so happy to get all snooty about what idiots everybody was to believe in that guy, right?
Yeah.
And it's only like when you go, oh yeah, but look at your stuff.
And also, when you can easily demonstrate that so much of the Godhead, the three gods, whatever they believe in, are just pastiches and borrowed from other gods that were borrowed from other gods before that.
Yep.
And I think that's our examination of this kind of comparative religion thing is just to say, look, not only are these crazy ideas, but this idea will eventually go away in the way that 4,000 years ago, nobody thought Egypt was going fucking anywhere, right? Or that Rome was 2,000 years ago, Rome was going anywhere.
Right.
So, but they did. The greatest empires on earth just kind of went, and now they're wonderful places to visit. And these ideas will do the same thing. They'll evolve, they'll change, they'll become something else. So I think it's really helpful for people to see that this is just another in a long continuum of bad ideas that are slowly being replaced by better ones.
Yep. That people just trying to figure out the world and missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Missing by quite a bit.
Missing by a lot. Stay in school, kids.
Yes.
All right. Where can folks find the podcast and get in touch with you and all of those things?
Well, I don't know if you've heard of this thing that they've got out now called this internet.
Oh.
But I hear it's pretty good. What you do is you type into the Google
on the electric internet.
Yeah.
You
email Google and you find,
and they'll fax you.
No, we're on all the places where you can find your various and sundry podcasts. Just the How to Heretic, or you can go to our website howtoheretic.com, and we're there too.
And we're on Twitter and Facebook at How to Heretic and the How to Heretic Facebook page. So and our email is all there. So anybody wants to get a hold of us, we're easy to find, and we'd sure love anybody that wants to come listen. We'll yell at you once a week.
Nah, it's a great show. Everybody's gonna love it.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
All right, Uncle Mark, Uncle Dan, the How to Heretic. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show tonight and spending some time with us. And let's do this again sometime. I'm looking forward to another chat. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we had a great time. You guys have a wonderful night there in Tampa.
All righty, thank you. You guys have a good one. All right, yeah.
Bye.
We'll be in touch. All right, there you go. Uncle Mark and Uncle Dan. That was great.
Yeah.
Good times. Yeah. And seriously, check out their show. It is a great one. It's one of my so I listen to a lot of podcasts.
You have like 47 different podcasts.
I do listen to a lot of podcasts, but I listen to. There are some podcasts, and podcast aficionados will probably agree with me. There are some podcasts that you listen to every week and you don't skip, right? And unless you go on vacation for a month and then you get behind. But for the most part, when my podcast app gets overloaded, I have to make some decisions, and I have to look at here are the episodes. Which ones do I want to really really listen to, and which ones can I skip through? and do without that week. And I usually try to, I like the average user created content, like the stuff that we do. So I will usually keep those on the list in favor of things like I'll skip some of the NPR stuff that I have,
Right.
and that sort of thing. Like there are just some podcasts that I have to, I can't miss that. And then there's some that I'm like, I'm a semi-regular listener. I'll check in every once in a while and see what's going on, but I don't have to listen to every episode. This is one that I listen to every week. Every week. So there you go. Check it out.
Victoria. She says, even on vacation, I'm tuning into Sarah Talk.
That's great. What's a vacation?
Yeah, right.
We want to give a big shout out. Thank you to our patrons over at patreon.com/SarahTalk. And this week,
do we have a new patron?
Oh, crap. Kimberly is our newest patron.
Welcome.
Welcome. So thank you so much for everybody again supporting what we do, and whether I tune into Sarah Talk while at work, Russell says, in a loud kitchen.
Yes, he's listening at work right now.
Whether they like it or not. Absolutely. All right. So, hey, thanks everybody for listening.
So super fun.
Working on booking the next few shows. Not entirely sure what we're going to be doing as we go forward here.
Got lots of work to do, though.
Yes. Booking a show every week is tough. Like having a thing every week, it's not easy. Now, the news cycle makes it easy. If we ever decided to change our format and stop talking about news stories,
we would be staring at each
fucked.
other.
we would have nothing to talk about. Absolutely nothing to talk about.
You'd have to reach out to like 14 podcasts a week just to get an interview every week.
Right? I do. I send out.
I know
I mean,
you
at
do.
this point, I send out at least 5 emails a week, trying to reel in some fish and some big fish. Trying to get some big names.
That'd be nice.
That'd be cool.
That'd be really cool. We'll see what happens.
Right. And we need to get your show recorded.
Yep. I'm going to get mine going.
And get that launched. That'll be fun. All right.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you, everyone, for listening, especially those of you on the Facebook Live. That's it. What a long night. Thanks to the How to Heretic guys. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I guess it's almost 2 hours.
All right. We'll see you next week. You've been listening to Sarah Talk.
Sarah Talk is made possible by listener support. Visit patreon.com/SarahTalk to become a patron and help keep this program going. Contact Sarah and Company by email at producer@sarahtalk.com or call 224-40-SARAH. That's 224-407-2724. And follow us on social media, facebook.com/SarahTalkRadio and on Twitter @SarahTalkRadio. The opinions and information provided on this show are intended for entertainment purposes only. All opinions are solely that of the hosts and their guests. We make no representations as to accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or validity of any information and will not be liable for any errors or damages. Sarah Talk is a production of Sarah Austin Media.